Chapter 15: Practical Applications in Everyday Life. Spiritual intelligence is more than an abstract concept or private experience. It is a dynamic force that shapes how we live, relate, and respond to the world around us. At its core, spiritual intelligence involves the ability to perceive and interpret God's presence and guidance, not only within ourselves, but in every facet of our daily lives. It bridges the inner realm of prayer, reflection, and discernment with the outer realm of relationships, responsibilities, and challenges. Moving from inner awareness to outward action requires intentionality. It means making conscious choices to embody faith, hope, and love in tangible ways. In how we treat family members, interact with co-workers, serve our communities, and engage with the broader culture. Without intentionality, spiritual insights risk remaining private or theoretical, disconnected from the practical realities where transformation is most needed. This chapter explores how spiritual intelligence can be lived out authentically across different spheres of life. It offers tools and reflections to help cultivate a lifestyle where faith shapes decisions, motivates service, and inspires hope. By integrating spiritual intelligence into everyday settings, believers can become living witnesses to God's presence, bringing light, wisdom, and love into a world longing for meaning and direction. The importance of intentionality in everyday settings. Intentionality is the conscious decision to live with purpose and awareness, allowing spiritual intelligence to guide our actions rather than simply reacting to circumstances or habits. In the busyness and complexity of daily life, it's easy to drift, going through routines, responding out of impulse, or prioritizing immediate concerns over deeper values. Without intentionality, moments of spiritual insight or conviction may be fleeting and fail to shape our behavior in meaningful ways. Living intentionally means actively choosing to bring faith and spiritual awareness into every interaction and decision. It requires pausing to reflect on God's presence and guidance, even amid mundane tasks or stressful situations. For example, it might look like responding to a difficult co-worker with patience rather than frustration, or choosing to prioritize family time despite a busy schedule. It could mean engaging in community service not out of obligation, but from a genuine desire to embody Christ's love. In everyday settings, intentionality also involves setting boundaries to protect our spiritual well-being, carving out time for prayer, reflection, and rest amid the noise and demands of life. It means being vigilant against distractions or attitudes that dull our sensitivity to God's whisper and the need for others. Ultimately, intentionality transforms ordinary moments into opportunities for spiritual growth and witness. It bridges the gap between what we believe and how we live, enabling spiritual intelligence to shape our character, influence our relationships, and impact our broader community. By living with purpose and openness to God's guidance, we become co-creators of a more compassionate, just, and hopeful world. Family. Living spiritual intelligence at home. The family is often the first and most influential setting where spiritual intelligence can be nurtured and expressed. Home is where values are formed, relationships are deepened, and daily habits take root. Applying spiritual intelligence in the family means cultivating awareness, empathy, and intentionality in our interactions with loved ones, creating an environment where faith and love are lived authentically. 1. Active listening and presence. One of the simplest, yet most profound ways to practice spiritual intelligence at home is through active listening, truly hearing the joys, struggles, and needs of family members without judgment or distraction. This presence fosters trust and emotional safety, making the home a sanctuary where everyone feels valued and understood. 2. Modeling virtues. Parents and caregivers have the unique responsibility to embody virtues such as patience, kindness, forgiveness, and humility. These qualities, when consistently demonstrated, teach children how to navigate life's challenges with grace and resilience. Spiritual intelligence helps family members recognize when these virtues are needed and how to cultivate them. 3. Creating sacred rhythms. Incorporating prayer, grace before meals, spiritual reading, or moments of gratitude into family routines anchors the household in faith. These rituals not only invite God into everyday life, but also remind each person of their shared spiritual journey, fostering unity and a sense of purpose. 4. Resolving conflict with compassion. Disagreements and misunderstandings are inevitable, but spiritual intelligence guides family members to approach conflict with empathy and a desire for reconciliation rather than division. This means listening to understand rather than to respond, seeking forgiveness, and prioritizing the health of relationships over winning an argument. 5. Encouraging growth and support. Each member of the family is on a unique spiritual path. Spiritual intelligence involves recognizing and supporting these individual journeys, encouraging questions, celebrating milestones, and offering guidance without imposing rigid expectations. Benefits for family life. Builds trust. When each person feels heard and valued, trust grows, strengthening family bonds. Diffuses conflict. Compassionate responses can soften tensions and open pathways to reconciliation. Fosters emotional safety. Family members are more likely to share honestly when they know their words won't be met with harsh judgment or dismissal. Encourages growth. Honest, respectful dialogue helps individuals reflect and grow spiritually and emotionally. Practical tips. Practice pausing before responding to ensure you are hearing and not just waiting to talk. Use I statements to express feelings and needs without casting blame. Example, I feel hurt when. Reflect back what you hear to confirm understanding. It sounds like you're feeling. Set aside regular times for open family conversations free from distractions. By cultivating deep listening and compassionate communication, families not only enrich their relationships, but also embody the very essence of spiritual intelligence, a loving, attentive, and discerning presence in one another's lives. Modeling faith through actions and routines. Spiritual intelligence within the family is not only expressed through words, but also powerfully demonstrated through consistent actions and daily routines. Children and family members learn most deeply from what they see lived out regularly. Faith modeled in tangible, relatable ways. The power of example. Parents and guardians serve as primary role models, shaping the spiritual atmosphere of the home. When faith is lived authentically through kindness, patience, forgiveness, and prayer, these qualities become an unspoken curriculum for the whole family. Actions often speak louder than words, and consistent demonstrations of faith teach values that words alone cannot convey. Incorporating faith into daily life. Prayer practices. Regular family prayers, whether at meals, bedtime, or spontaneous moments, roots the household in ongoing conversation with God. This model relies on divine guidance and gratitude. Acts of service. Engaging together in simple acts of kindness, such as helping neighbors or volunteering, embodies the call to love and serve others. Celebrating liturgical seasons. Observing seasons like Advent, Lent, or feast days through family traditions, scripture readings, and special rituals cultivates a shared spiritual rhythm. Consistent moral choices. Demonstrating integrity in everyday decisions, honesty, generosity, and compassion reinforces the connection between faith and living rightly. Routine as spiritual formation. Routines provide a dependable framework where faith can flourish. When spiritual practices become habitual, they shape the family's identity and influence how members navigate challenges. Routines also offer children a sense of security and belonging, anchored in shared beliefs. Benefits of modeling faith. 1. Create a faith-filled environment. A home infused with lived faith nurtures growth and curiosity about spiritual matters. 2. Builds lasting habits. Children internalize spiritual disciplines that can sustain them throughout life. 3. Encourages mutual support. When faith is communal, family members encourage and hold each other accountable in their spiritual journeys. 4. Develops character. Faith lived in action cultivates virtues like patience, humility, and perseverance. Practical suggestions. Establish a regular time for family prayer or scripture reading. Share testimonies of how faith influences daily decisions and struggles. Celebrate milestones and blessings with gratitude and prayer. Involve children in planning and participating in spiritual activities. Through intentional modeling of faith in actions and routines, families embody spiritual intelligence, creating a living legacy of faith that shapes hearts and minds across generations. Navigating conflict with grace and discernment. Conflict is inevitable in any family, workplace, or community setting. How we handle disagreement can either deepen relationships or cause lasting wounds. Applying spiritual intelligence to navigate conflict invites us to respond not with reactive emotions, but with grace, wisdom, and discernment rooted in faith. Recognizing conflict as an opportunity. Conflict, while often uncomfortable, can catalyze growth and greater understanding. Through the lens of spiritual intelligence, conflicts become moments to practice humility, patience, and empathy. They invite us to listen deeply to others and to God before responding. The role of discernment. Discernment is critical in conflicts. It helps us to identify the root causes beyond surface emotions and to recognize God's guiding presence, even in tension. Spiritual intelligence allows us to distinguish between when to speak, when to listen, and when to hold silence. It also guides us to seek solutions that honor truth and love. Practicing grace. Grace in conflict means choosing kindness over bitterness, forgiveness over resentment, and peace over pride. It requires acknowledging our own limitations and extending understanding to others, even when we disagree. Grace doesn't ignore wrongdoing, but addresses it with compassion rather than condemnation. Key steps to navigate conflict with spiritual intelligence. 1. Pause and pray. Before responding, take a moment to pray for clarity, patience, and humility. 2. Listen actively. Hear not only words, but also feelings and needs. Avoid interrupting or preparing your defense while others speak. 3. Speak truth in love. Communicate honestly but gently, focusing on your experience rather than blame. Use I statements to express feelings and needs. 4. Seek common ground. Identify shared values and goals that can form the basis for reconciliation. 5. Forgive and reconcile. Be willing to forgive and seek forgiveness, understanding that restoration often requires humility and grace on all sides. Biblical foundations. Ephesians 4 verse 2-3. Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. James 1 verse 19. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Matthew 18:15-17. Jesus teaches steps for addressing conflict within the community, emphasizing reconciliation. Practical tips. Establish family or team agreements about how to handle disagreements respectfully.
Create safe spaces for open dialogue,
free from judgment. Use conflict as a teaching moment for younger families about patience and forgiveness. Regularly reflect on past conflicts to learn and grow in spiritual maturity. Navigating conflict with grace and discernment transforms potentially divisive moments into opportunities for healing, deeper connection, and spiritual growth. It reflects a heart tuned to God's presence, ready to embody His peace in the midst of tension. Creating spiritual rituals and sacred moments. In the busyness of everyday life, intentionally creating spiritual rituals and sacred moments helps anchor our faith and deepen our spiritual intelligence. These practices invite us to pause, recognize God's presence, and align our hearts and minds with His will amid routine tasks and responsibilities. Why spiritual rituals matter. Rituals provide a tangible way to express and reinforce spiritual truths. They cultivate a rhythm that integrates the sacred into the ordinary, helping us remain mindful of God throughout the day. Whether simple or elaborate, rituals become touchstones of grace, reminding us to live intentionally and reverently. Types of spiritual rituals in everyday life. 1. Morning and evening prayer. Starting and ending the day with prayer sets a tone of dependence on God, inviting His guidance and peace. Even brief moments of gratitude or petition can create a sacred frame for the day. 2. Family blessings. A simple blessing over meals or before bed can become a powerful way to invite God's presence into family life and create a sense of unity and peace. 3. Sacred spaces. Designating a corner of the home for prayer, scripture, or reflection signals a physical and spiritual commitment to encountering God regularly. This might include a small altar with a Bible, rosary, candles, or meaningful images. 4. Scripture reading and reflection. Carving out time daily or weekly for Lectio Divina or meditative scripture reading nourishes the soul and sharpens spiritual sensitivity. 5. Acts of service. Making service a habitual spiritual practice, like volunteering, helping neighbors, or simply showing kindness, can transform routine actions into sacred offerings. 6. Celebrating liturgical seasons. Observing seasons like Advent, Lent, or Pentecost through prayers, fasting, or special activities aligns family life with the Church's rhythm and deepens communal faith. Creating sacred moments in daily routine. 1. Mindful transitions. Use moments like driving, walking, or waiting in line to pray, reflect, or breathe deeply, transforming mundane intervals into opportunities for communion with God. 2. Gratitude breaks. Pause multiple times a day to silently thank God for specific blessings or challenges that teach trust and growth. 3. Listening time. Set aside intentional silence, even for a few minutes, to listen for God's whisper amid daily noise. Benefits of rituals and sacred moments. 1. Foster awareness of God's ongoing presence. 2. Strengthen spiritual habits that sustain faith in challenges. 3. Build community and shared faith experiences within families and groups. 4. Anchor moral and spiritual decisions in a continual relationship with God. Biblical roots. Jesus often withdrew to pray at significant moments. Mark 1 verse 35, Luke 5 verse 16. The Israelites observed festivals and Sabbath rest as holy times to remember and worship God. Leviticus 23. Paul exhorts believers to pray without ceasing. 1 Thessalonians 5 verse 17, encouraging an ongoing spiritual rhythm. Practical tips for establishing rituals. 1. Start small and be consistent to build lasting habits. 2. Involve all family members or community participants to foster connection and shared meaning. 3. Be flexible. Rituals should inspire, not burden or feel legalistic. 4. Reflect regularly on how rituals nurture your spiritual life and adjust as needed. By intentionally creating spiritual rituals and sacred moments, we cultivate a life where the divine intersects with the everyday, transforming the ordinary into pathways of grace, growth, and deeper communion with God. And that brings us to the end of the story. Thank you for listening and for journeying with us from the very first chapter to the very last. I hope you enjoyed every moment of it. This audiobook was brought to you by Onyus Media. About the author. Reverend Father Donatus Onyinye Chukwedo is a priest of the Catholic Diocese of Iseluku, Delta State, Nigeria, ordained on August 15, 2009. He holds a bachelor's degree in philosophy from the University of Ibadan, Nigeria, and a Bachelor of Theology from the Urban University in Rome. Additionally, he earned a diploma in education and a master's degree in special education at the University of Ibadan. Throughout his ministry, he has served in various capacities within his home diocese, including pastoring 3 parishes, working as a teacher and chaplain at Madonna School for Children with Special Needs, Okpanam, St. Mulumba Secondary School, Okpanam, and St. Charles College, Abavo. Currently, he serves in the Archdiocese of Cardiff, Menevia, United Kingdom, as a Fide Donum priest. He is the parish priest of Ammanford, Llandovery, and Llandelo.